Okay, so today we are going to look at another one of Project Zero's thinking routines, so from making thinking visible, and it's going to be another one of the core thinking routines. Today I'm going to look at one of the simplest and certainly one that I've heard about the most, and that is See, Think, Wonder. So the context for this was, so we've got broken down into three parts. So what do you see, what do you think about that, and what does it make you wonder? So again, encouraging students to hopefully demonstrate that depth of thinking by assessing something and then providing additional follow-up questions, which hopefully will give me a good bit of insight into their level of understanding as well. So the context for this comes at the end of a unit. So this is the unit that they've been doing. It's a Beethoven remix project. So they've been given 30 odd samples of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and they need to remix that into a style of their own. So they've been over a variety of different techniques to do that. They've had a bit of history, a variety of different approaches, different stimulus, and then the success criteria look like this. So use at least 5 Beethoven samples from the folder on your desktop, demonstrate edit skills by ordering, trimming, or looping your samples, use a range of logic loops to create different musical textures, and add sounds using your MIDI keyboard. So nice, simple success criteria. Students are able to assess whether they've done it. It's a simple yes or no. Now, how I would traditionally assess this is I would encourage students to play their work for the rest of the class. This is usually done in pairs, and I would use a grid that looks like this. It would prompt class discussion. So I would lead this from the front. We'd all have a listen to it together. We'd have different students contributing different answers, and I'd assess in the following category the use of samples, so the little bit of Beethoven that they've got to incorporate, their use of loops and MIDI to be able to demonstrate how they've then restructured that into a different style, and then an overall remix success. Does it feel like a new track with a defined style? And then we'd add that up. Each of these would be out of 5, and then they'd get a total mark out of 15. So quite numerical. There's three different categories. What I was wanting to try, so I recognise this as being an area of potential improvement, with some classes struggling to engage with it. All the groups tended to end up with a similar mark. I didn't necessarily think it was very effective. So what I wanted to do was use See, Think, Wonder. I was going to restructure that as being Hear, Think, Wonder, with the stimulus being the student's work. So this is a prompt for class discussion to peer assess everyone else's work. So I'm hoping that this will be simpler. There'll be less formality with it. So everyone will listen to each other's work. It would be, what features can you spot directly from the success criteria? What's your opinion? And then something that you'd like to know more about. So what do you wonder about that project? So I'm hoping that will encourage students to reflect on, well, maybe there could have been a little bit of this, or have you thought about including some of this, or that sort of follow-up question or follow-up point. So a little bit of an experiment today. I'm going to ask students what they think about these two different approaches. Right, so after we'd done the lesson, we had some interesting bits of feedback from students about what they thought. Now, if we're comparing these two forms, there we go, so there's the first one. So we've got the 3 categories, and then each of them marked out of 5, and then a total out of 15 at the end. Now, some students did prefer that. There was maybe 3 or 4 students which did seem to quite like that because they liked the numerical aspect. They felt it was logical, and they felt it added up to each category was judged individually, and then it would add up to the score at the end. So it was a nice logical progression. The majority of students preferred this because they felt it was more open. So I've made a couple of notes. So they've said because the categories were simpler, they felt it was faster. Now I think that's more of a perception thing. I don't think it was any faster. I think that it was maybe simpler, and it was easier for them to comprehend the different categories. So we displayed that. We had the success criteria up on the board. I had this written on the whiteboard, and we went through. So each student would give a quick, what can I hear, what do I think about it, and what are my next questions. So for when we give them peer assessment, I maybe chose 2 to 3 students to run through this process. And as with anything, it started off slightly slower, and the more they did it, the faster they got at it. But I wouldn't have said it was faster overall than the other one. But students definitely perceived it as being faster. And they liked the fact that it was so open. They could pick out any aspect. It wasn't necessarily defined as being this is the fact, this is the area we're focusing on, then this is the area we're focusing on, then this is the area we're focusing on. So it was good. They also liked the fact that it finished with a question. That was quite a positive, and encouraged them to think about what the next steps would be, and encourage the students that were being put on the spot a little bit to justify certain decisions that they'd made, certain creative decisions that they'd made. So it was an interesting trial, and one that I think I would probably use again.